Alright, so it's my first review after Halloween, after the Spookathon, and I am talking about another horror movie, Last House on the Left. This was Wes Craven's debut film. I'm a big Wes Craven fan, and I would say the only reason that I've been putting off watching Last House on the Left for so long was because of the aura surrounding it, the hype around it. This was the one movie that growing up my father condemned me from watching. My dad was pretty laissez-faire with whatever I wanted to watch. He let me watch the Friday the 13th movies when I was a younger teenager, Jaws, Terminator when I was still in single digits. But so when he told me this is the one movie you're not allowed to watch, I didn't have that reaction of, well, now I gotta watch it because it's forbidden. I was like, oh shit, dad lets me watch literally anything. This must be bad. You know? Like with my mom, if she was like, I don't want you watching Pulp Fiction, I was like, I'm gonna watch Pulp Fiction. But Last House on the Left was the one that I heeded my parents' warning, I guess. And then, of course, it's always in the conversation with films like Cannibal Holocaust and I Spit on Your Grave. I always see it on the lists of the most fucked up movies ever made, so I kind of had this expectation that it was going to be in that vein. And frankly, like, I'm okay with extreme subject matter. It's just not usually what I seek out. I have to be in the right mindset. It took me a long time to finally get around to watching Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, or a movie like Kuso, where there's grotesque imagery or uncomfortable, shit going on, and I have to kind of get myself, like, I have to hype myself up and be like, I'm gonna watch this fucked up movie. I gotta be ready for it. And I guess this one just slipped by. Like, it was one where I was like, okay, I'm really not super keen on watching a movie with a lot of rape and a lot of, young girls being tortured and molested. And, it's not really something that you can really get in the right mindset for. And I don't usually like innocent people being mutilated. Like, I say that, and I love slasher films. I love really rough movies. I like watching really intense stuff. But I think most people would agree that there's something different from A Nightmare on Elm Street or a Texas Chainsaw Massacre and then a Cannibal Holocaust. And for some reason in my mind, I thought that Last House on the Left was going to be in that Cannibal Holocaust category. It's kind of in the middle. It's not as shocking as I was led to believe. I was honestly kind of surprised by how tame it was, and I feel weird saying tame because it's not tame. It's still a tough watch, and the subject matter is still uncomfortable and still unpleasant, but it's not to the degree that I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to be seeing something way more extreme than what I saw. And I guess that's just your imagination, right? Like, that's your mind hearing something and creating these own horrific images. The Last House on the Left that I had in my mind was way more hardcore than the movie I actually saw. Definitely shocking for when it came out, still shocking today, but there are films that are much more intense and movies that depict much more gruesome violence, much more horrific rape scenes, much more harsh language and drug use that I've seen. There's movies that depict what this movie depicts far more extremely. So yeah, what do I think about the movie itself, though? I think it definitely shows a lot of growing pains and a lot of amateur mistakes, and it's a very first movie kind of thing, but I do think a lot of Wes Craven's future brilliance shines through. There's something really gut-wrenching and something that makes you feel queasy and uneasy about the scenes towards the end where the killers, the rapists, end up in one of their victims' family homes, and they even end up sleeping in her own bed at one point, and there's just something really twisted and dark about that I found extremely effective, unnerving, and like I said, gut twisting. And that's something that the movie does really well, is making all of the scenes that are supposed to make you uncomfortable make you sick to your stomach and make you really hate the villains. And it also depicts it in a realistic enough way that it lets you know, and I've heard Wes Craven say this in interviews, that this kind of thing has happened and people like this do exist. The movie is very effective in telling its grim story and making you feel awful. That's the intention, and that's the feeling that you get. Like I said, you don't actually see all that much, and when I say that, I don't mean like, oh, you don't actually see them get raped. I generally don't like that. I think it's much better to show a little bit and let your mind run away with things in terms of gore and special effects, And that's what this movie does. There's a lot of cases and incidents where the implication is what's so horrific and not so much what you're actually seeing. And you do see some stuff. I feel weird saying it's shot tastefully, because it's not. It's, it's very grindhousey. It's very low budget. It's very shocking. But like I said, I was going into this expecting Cannibal Holocaust, and it's not that. It's a little bit more, the word tasteful comes to mind, but there's nothing tasteful about it. I'm just trying to say that, for instance, spoiler alert, there's a scene where a character performs fellatio and bites a penis off. And me going into Last House on the Left before watching it would have expected to see a lot of that, see a lot of blood, see a lot of, dismemberment, and you don't. It's kind of off camera. You're seeing it from the side almost, so you don't really get to see anything, but you know exactly what's going on. It's still uncomfortable, and the movement that the actors are giving in their performance lets you know exactly what's going on and how painful it is, and it's effective. It's good in terms of storytelling, but you're not actually seeing like any phallus or any blood, really. I mean, there's a lot of blood in the movie, just talking about that scene in particular. And yeah, so that's what a lot of the movie's like. I hope that makes sense. It's just very, you're seeing more than you would in a tamer movie, but not as much as you would in a modern day extreme torture porn film. But like I said, there's definitely some amateurness to it, and definitely some growing pains of an early director. I think tonally the movie is all over the place. It gets a little messy with the tone. There's some comedic scenes that just don't fit the rest of the film. The music selection is extremely odd, though at times it's effective in creating this emotional response. Similarly to how in A Clockwork Orange they do Singing in the Rain, I have a similar feeling about some of the songs in this movie, but sometimes they just outright don't fit. So you have a weird kind of like, hey, this is creating an emotional reaction that is really working for me, and now it's just like, what the fuck, why this song? The performances are passable. Like, I want to say that they're played very, like, real. Like, I never, some of the performances, it's just like, yeah, these feel like real people, and some of the other performances are like, you still feel like real people, but I don't know that you feel like the character you're trying to play. For instance, the heroin junkie, I felt during the withdrawal scenes and the addiction scenes when he's getting sick, did a good job, but the rest of the movie I was like, I can't tell if he's like, I get it, he's a junkie. I don't know, like it's like he couldn't figure out if he was supposed to be playing like, like a scratching, like the bugs under my skin kind of junkie, or if he was supposed to be like, I am like a Forrest Gump type disabled person, or if he was like, I have the mind of a child, he wasn't really, a more experienced actor could have taken any of those character traits further and it would have been more impressive, is what I'm trying to say. The villains are pretty one-dimensional, but again, like I said, the performances are all passable. Nobody really gives an Oscar-worthy performance, and nobody really gives a performance that makes me go like, wow, that was in Last House on the Left. They're all just kind of like, yeah, they performed. And yeah, the movie was okay, because of things like the tonal issues and the weird music choices and the fact that none of the performances are amazing, kind of hold it back. And that, as well as I feel like there's some pacing issues. I feel like some scenes go on too long. But overall, I did enjoy the movie in a critical sense, I guess. Because, like, obviously, like, I would never sit here and say, like, wow, Last House on the Left was such a fun watch. It's not that type of movie, but it's but yeah, I do think that it is successful in telling the story that it wants to tell. It's very interesting to go back and watch after being so familiar with Wes Craven's other films. It's interesting to see, it's interesting to go back and see where he got his start. And also, I'm starting to really notice a pattern. Wes Craven really likes traps in his movies. Last House on the Left, The Hills Have Eyes Part 2, Nightmare on Elm Street, like there's a lot of traps in Wes Anderson movies. There's a lot of traps in Wes Craven movies. So yeah, what do I rate it? I fucking hate doing ratings. Like, it feels so arbitrary. Like, really, I feel like I say this in a lot of my videos. I don't even know why I put myself through this, but fuck it, we're here. I'm gonna give Last House on the Left a 7. chainsaw wielding dads out of 10. Thanks for watching my video.